What's up, sixth graders? You are about to go into the video lesson for 6.3 on variables and expressions. So we're going to start off with a little vocab at the top. In the last lesson, you learned about numerical expressions, which are the PEMDAS problems. There's no variables in them. It's just a bunch of numbers, adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, etc. Today, we're going to talk about algebraic expressions, and they contain at least one variable and at least one operation. For example, the expression n plus 2 represents the sum of an unknown number and 2. So basically they're numerical expressions, but we throw a variable or two in them. Now, one big point here is, I've talked about this before, is we do not use x to show multiplication. So we would not show 6 times x like this because it looks like 6xx. X gets confused with the variable. So there are a couple different ways to show multiplication. 5 times x with a dot, 5 times x with parentheses, and 5 times x is just 5x. Now, just so you know, the preferred way, or the one way you'll see most often in algebra, is that. All right, so in examples 1, 2, and 3, we're just going to show you some really simple ones. Now, let's go start with the examples here. It says evaluate, and evaluate is a word for solve. 16 plus b if b equals 25. So in this one, for 16 plus b, you substitute the 25 in for b, do 16 plus 25, which is 41. Now this one says evaluate x minus y if x is 64 and y is 27. So you substitute the x and y with 64 and 27, and you subtract to get 37. And this one here, evaluate 6 times x if x is 1/2. So when you write it, 6 times x becomes 6 times 1/2, and remember, 6 times 1/2 is half of 6, which is 3. All right, very simple ones. So I went through those examples quickly. And now here's what I want you to do. You are going to do A, B, C, and D on your own. It says evaluate each expression if A equals 6, B equals 4, and C equals 1/3. Now here is the one thing I want you to write down. So I guess we'll go over A together. When you evaluate the expression, don't just write the answer. So for example, in A, where it says A plus 8, I want you to rewrite it as 6 plus 8. And then you'll solve it and get 14. So do not skip this step here where you substitute the number in and rewrite the problem. All right, now pause the video, do B, C, and D. When you're done with the 3, restart it and see if you were right. Go ahead. Okay, let's see how you did. So for B, you had A minus B, which you substitute the 6 minus 4, which is 2. If you had it, give yourself a C. For C, you have A times B, which becomes 6 times 4, which is 24. And in D, you have 9 times C. Now remember, C is 1/3, so you have 9 times 1/3. And remember, to find 1/3 of 9, you just divide 9 by 3, which is 3. Now, if you didn't know that one, you could always do 9 over 1 times 1/3. Bow tie reduce. Oops, sorry, that's a 3. And you get 3 over 1, which is 3. But to find 1/3 of 9, you just divide by 3. All right, next page. On this page, we're going to talk about multi-step expressions. And you'll see these aren't that hard either. So in example 4, it says evaluate 5 times t plus 4 if t equals 3. So I'm going to get a little bit of workspace here real quick. All right, and let me show you what you do. First thing, for 5 times t, you rewrite that as 5 times 3 plus 4. Okay, because t equals 3, right? Then you have to remember to follow PEMDAS. So when you follow PEMDAS, remember, you multiply before you add. So I'm going to do 5 times 3, which is 15, plus 4, which is 19. Okay, now this next one is actually a little tricky. So watch what I do here, because I think you have an example like this or a problem like this to do on your own below. So this one says evaluate 4 times x squared if x equals 1/8. So watch what I'm going to do. First off, I'm going to substitute 4 times 1/8 squared. Now, I put 1/8 in parentheses, so I know I'm squaring the whole thing. Now, if you know PEMDAS, we're going to solve the exponent first, so we have to do 1/8 squared first. And I'm going to actually write that down over here. Remember, that means 1/8 times 1/8, which is 1/64. Okay, so now I'm going to rewrite this as 4 times 1/64. I'm going to solve it. And you could do some bow tie reducing here. 4 goes into itself once, and 4 goes into 64 16 times. And you get 1 times 1, which is 1, 1 times 16, which is 16. So your answer to this one is 1/16. All right, and then we have example 6. In example 6, I want you to do this one with me. So let's start out by looking at our expression. It says evaluate 10 times a plus 7 if a is 1/5. So let's start writing this down. We're going to first substitute the 1 in fifth for a. So we have 10 times 1/5 plus 7. Now, according to PEMDAS, we have to multiply before we add. So we're going to multiply 10 times 1/5. Okay, now I'm going to do 10 times 1/5, 10 over 1, times 1/5 up here. And remember, 5 goes into itself once, and 5 goes into 10 twice. And that gets us 2 over 1, which is 2, right? So I'm going to put that 2 here. 2 plus 7 is 9. You're done. All right, don't forget to follow PEMDAS. Now let's go down. We're going to have you try a couple of these suckers. So I want you to do E, F, and G. Remember that D equals 12 and E equals 1/3. And also remember when you substitute to follow PEMDAS. You have no room underneath the problems to do your work, so you're probably going to want to do them in the white space or in your workspace off to the side. All right, do these 3 problems. Make sure you show your work. Restart the video when you're done. Go. All right, let's see how you did. So first off, remember, if you didn't show your work, show it with me as I go over it. I'm going to start with 2 times d minus 5, and I'm going to write that as 2 times 12 minus 5. Now, according to PEMDAS, I must multiply first. So I'm going to do 2 times 12, which is 24. 24 minus 5 is 19. So if you had 19 for E, give yourself a C. Next one, we're going to do F. So problem F I'm going to do right here. And we have 50 minus 3 times D is 12. Okay, now did you follow PEMDAS? Did you multiply before you subtracted? 3 times 12 is 36. You do 50 minus 36, which is 14. If you had 14, give yourself a C. All right, and the last one you had to do on this page was problem G. And in G, you have 9 times E squared. And an E is 1/3, so 9 times 1/3 squared. Now, for PEMDAS, I need to solve the exponent first, 1/3 squared. And I'm going to do that work right here, because it's 1/3 times 1/3, which is 1/9. So 1/3 squared equals 1/9. I'm going to write that down here, bring down my times 9. And if I multiply, I get 9 over 9, which is 1. So the answer to G is 1. So how'd you do on those 3? If you got them all, then you're kicking butt. Learn from any mistakes that you made, because now we're going to go on to the world problem on the next page. So let's read over this one, and then I'll show you how to do it. I'm going to block this off so we can show the work, our own work here. So let's start. It says, Khalil is wrapping a gift for his brother's birthday. The box has side lengths that are 1/2 foot. So take a look down here. It's 1/2 high, 1/2 wide, 1/2 long. So it's a cube that's 1/2 foot in each side. Use the expression 6 times s squared, where s represents the length of a side, to find the surface area of the box he is wrapping. Write your answer in square feet. All right, so we're going to take this expression, 6 times s squared, and I'm going to write that down here, 6 times s squared. Now, remember, s represents the length of a side, which is 1/2. So now I'm going to substitute 1/2 in for s. So I have 6 times 1/2 squared. Okay, next I'm going to use PEMDAS to solve. So we have to do exponents first. Now 1/2 squared I'm going to do off to the side. 1/2 times 1/2 is 1/4. Okay? So now I have 6 times 1/4. Which I'm going to write 6 over 1. And now I'm going to do some bow tie reducing. Notice that 2 goes into 6 and 4. So 2 goes into 4 twice. 2 goes into 6 3 times. I get 3 over 2. And that equals 1 1/2 square feet. Remember it said write your answer in square feet? So you would actually write that here, 1 1/2 ft with the exponent 2. That's how you write square feet. And that's what you get. That's how much wrapping paper you would need for that cube. All right, so you are done with the video lesson for me. If you are absent, let me get that box out of there. If you are absent, I know you're going to be doing these problems down below. Make sure you show your work underneath. Make sure you substitute the number in and follow PEMDAS for the two-steppers. Don't skip that work or you won't get full credit. All right, if you have any questions, make sure you ask me. And as always, thanks for watching.